Welcome to Empowered Transformation with your host, Christa Dawson. Over the next hour, you will learn about tools that will support your healing process and living a life full of purpose and joy. Now, here is Christa.
Hello and welcome to episode 10 of Empowered Transformation. And I am your host, Christa Dawson, and I'm so glad you're here today. Today, we are going to be, today is the first of a two-part series, I will say, that we've called the nuts and bolts of your return to wholeness. I have a theory or a belief, and went through this with Tabatha earlier. She agrees with me. The healing process is a process in your life that will never end. But if there's an arrival in this process, it is having cultivated a companionship with the multidimensional layers of who you are. The healing process is multidimensional because you are multidimensional. And although you will never arrive, because we are part of an infinite universe with an endless amount of possibilities and opportunity for growth, it can become an easier process. Is it painful at times? Absolutely, it's painful at times, but you can get good at it. And that's what our goal is as therapists and practitioners and healers, is to assist you in stepping into that process and holding space for you while you're in those processes. So today we're going to be more specifically defining, so first of all, let's talk really quickly about the layers of yourself as a human being. You have a mind and a body. You have a soul. You have an energy body, a subtle body, which you hear us talk about quite a bit. And you also have an emotional body. So over the course of the next 2 weeks, we're going to start breaking down those concepts for you. Today, we'll be starting with introducing the idea of your soul or your center. We're going to be talking about the energy body and the connection between our emotions and the energy body. So this is going to be a juicy episode. But before we go any further and before I introduce our guest, let's take a moment to center in. And I'm going to invite you, wherever you are, whether you're sitting or standing, that you just take a moment to tune into your posture, aligning your head over your shoulders with your chin gently tucked as if there's a string attached to the back of your head, gently pulling up on the back of your head, elongating your neck, inviting your shoulders gently back and down and stacking them over your hips. Remembering that you're doing energy or working with your energy all the time. And those subtle adjustments right down to how you're standing and the expression on your face can shift your perspective. So with that, I'm going to have you put a gentle smile on your face. Place your hand over your heart center. And rest your tongue in your mouth. This is such a powerful and simple tool. Allow your tongue to completely relax in your mouth. This invites you into relaxation. It's impossible to worry when your tongue is resting in the floor of your mouth. The hard part can be keeping it there. Noticing your breath and allowing it to slow. And the purpose for this pilot series was to introduce life-changing tools. And my intention for this pilot series was to bring energy psychology and all of the modalities that it encompasses into your home. And my hope and my intention is that you leave this hour having learned something new, or perhaps adding a tool to your tool belt, and that you leave this hour feeling inspired and hopeful. And most importantly, my intention is that you leave this hour with more compassion for yourself and for others. So I'm going to have you take a nice deep breath in through the nose, breathing in this intention. And a long, slow exhale out. Good. Allowing yourself to arrive. I will welcome you again as I will welcome myself in a more here state. So with that, today I welcome again my returning guest, Tabatha Bird-Weaver. She will be with me for the remaining 4 episodes, including today, of this pilot series. Tabatha is a duly licensed marriage and family therapist and professional counselor in the state of Oregon. She is certified by the Association for Comprehensive Energy Psychology and has been since 2009. She is a certified practitioner and teacher of advanced integrative therapy, which is an energy psychology therapy, and chakra dance. She is a clinical fellow of the American Association for Marriage and Family, where she served as president-elect and president for the Oregon chapter. She is a peer-reviewed published researcher regarding the treatment and transmission of complex trauma. She is a co-founder and the host of the CPTSD podcast and provides clinical and spiritual services in her private practice, specializing in complex trauma, energy psychology, human development, and potential. And for those of us who didn't catch our earlier episodes when I introduced Tabatha, gosh, this was what, episode 1 or 2, where you told a little more about your story. Tabatha and I have known each other since the 4th grade. And this opportunity has led to some we've just really enjoyed working together. And so I'm just going to be planting seeds that you're going to be hearing more about this collaboration in the future. Mm-hmm. But in the meantime, welcome Tabatha to episode 10 of Empowered Transformation.
Thank you, Christa. I am so grateful to be here and thinking that I need to shorten that intro for myself. Anyway, I'm really glad to be here. And this topic today that we're going to be talking about is near and dear to my heart.
Good, because it's near and dear to mine too. So I hope that you all catch the passion that is being sent out through our words. So this multidimensional process that we multidimensional beings have the opportunity to experience in our lifetimes. And let's go ahead and start with defining this really, really hugely important part of this process, and that is locating our center. Mm-hmm. So define for us, what exactly is our center, your soul, your spirit? Tell us some of the words. What is this?
All right. Well, I think the first thing, as we were talking about before, to think about is that religions and spirituality throughout human history have tried to define this, and we still fight about it. So take the pieces today that resonate with you and build for yourself from there. Some of the most common terms that we use are soul. Sometimes we use the word spirit as well, but and here we go into the dividing out what we think it is. I think that's a little bit different. Places that I'm familiar with, religions typically use the word soul, but when you start talking about energy psychology, we get into other words too, and typical psychology like centering or grounding. Tuning in to your higher self, your authentic self are other ways to think about it. Internal family systems uses just the word self with a capital S, kind of like the capital G we've put on God over time. But one of my favorite descriptions of this experience we have is from resonance therapy, created by Dr. Sierra Levy. And it's the idea of the highest and the deepest good that you have in you.
Oh,
it's
I
lovely.
Like that a lot.
It's so chewy.
I love that.
Thank you. I'm glad. I love it too. The thing that all of these things have in common is that there's some kind of understanding that part of you exists beyond, outside of, along with your body, along with your time in space, right? That it is eternal and it is huge, cosmically huge. And so this is where we, in more new age type ideas, we start getting into the idea of astral travel or distant, remote viewing that can take place with part of your soul.
Got it.
Yeah.
I like the idea of, or I think something we can touch on here briefly, and because we'll be expanding more down the road around this idea of mind, but learning to decipher the difference between the high self and the programs is going to be part of your journey in your healing process.
Mm-hmm.
And so using tools and things that help you to anchor to the high self so that you can observe the thoughts and the programs is hugely important.
Yeah.
But again, the importance of cultivating our connection to your center, the high self.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of your favorite tools in helping somebody connect to that part of themselves?
Any that works, frankly. So, I mean, in my practice, this is always an individual basis because we all have different concepts and experiences. But the bottom line tool that I think is crucial is stillness. Because when we're reacting or feeling frenetic or shut down or overwhelmed or any of those extreme states that we get in our experience, we are disconnected from our core. And we're functioning on belief patterns that were installed into us by our society, including our family, right? And so that stillness, that being able to pause and recognize that you're in that process and then do whatever you can to relieve that process so that you can get deeper and into your real self is pivotal. It's pivotal in this whole healing. And you can heal and improve your life without ever doing that. And you'll know that you haven't gone all the way. It's frustrating. It's frustrating when we don't learn how to connect to that deeper self because we just end up changing behavior, but the feeling and the experience doesn't really change.
This really speaks to, which anyone who knows me will know that I'm always talking about learning how to regulate the nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
So can you elaborate a little bit more on the value of learning to regulate as a way into discovering that center?
Yeah, I mean, we might want to save some of this for part 2, but
Okay.
fundamentally, when we are not regulated, it means that we are not able to naturally and easily deal with whatever is happening in front of us, right? So we might feel pressured or overwhelmed. And if it's really, like I was saying, really extreme shutdown or having a meltdown even. And so the key here is to recognize that once you've entered a pattern of reaction, right? So here's an example. Let's say something doesn't work out the way you expect and you feel embarrassed. It's really easy for a lot of us to get defensive and start justifying or try and blame outside for things that happen, or we can just feel like the worst person on the planet and I'll never figure it out. Whatever happens for you, recognizing that that is a cascading effect that starts with either a thought or a sensation. And really all it is an adrenaline burst paired with core beliefs that are dysfunctional. And that adrenaline burst is what makes our bodies feel so uncomfortable, right? And so another benefit to the pause is that once adrenaline is released, it has to metabolize. You can't just like turn it off. It's got to go through the process, ending in cortisol. So just to pair those up for people who might have heard those words. So one way, a great tool to get that reactivity to come down is to just recognize, oh, I'm having all these uncomfortable sensations because I have adrenaline in my body right now. And I'm just going to take a breath and give that a minute, because if I freak out about having adrenaline, I'm going to have more adrenaline. So that pause is instrumental in breaking a bunch of cascading cycles that we have going on.
That and just being swept away by them.
Yes.
So again, it brings you into or cultivates your ability to sit back and observe.
Yes.
And do something with it. because quite frequently those core beliefs and experiences that were absorbed and adopted by you from the time you were a very little person may erupt as triggers that you really did, maybe even didn't expect. And you get that burst of adrenaline. You can feel it. Like, oh, wow. And I guess I should say that that's one of the things that I've enjoyed as I have stepped into a more balanced relationship with myself, that it's almost like life is operating. It's like more of a slow motion. I have time to observe. Oh, wow. I just had an adrenaline rush from that statement that was said by that person. That was a trigger. And I can just sit with myself here for a minute, allow that to work itself out. And I'm here and I'm present with compassion and without judgment. And when you can start doing that, this makes even the super painful stuff more tolerable.
And it also makes life more manageable, because we go from being a thermometer, which means thermometers just react to what's going on in the situation. If you have a fever and you put a thermometer in, it goes up until it hits the limit of the fever. We want to be a thermostat. We want to be able to realize, oh, it's getting a little hot in here, and turn it down, right? Or I feel chilled out and turn it up, put more engagement in. That pause allows us to move from being in a state of reactionary response to making decisions. And that means empowerment, right? You're dipping into your own power when you make decisions versus have reactions.
Yeah. Yes. So just reiterating for folks, so how do I access this? Well, a great place to start is stillness. A great place to start is learning to use tools that help you to regulate. A lot of us don't really even know what that even feels to be in a state of well-being or calm or relaxed. We operate from such a high-paced position in our lives that spending some time exploring that will be invaluable and really help you to access that center. So practicing some stillness, practicing some meditation, practicing some yoga, practicing some qigong, anything that's going to help support EFT, all those things. EFT, by the way, is emotional freedom technique and energy psychology tool that specifically helps to regulate the nervous system and lowers cortisol levels. So one of the instigators for this 13-week series, good old energy, psychology, and emotional freedom technique, which understands that the healing process is not just all up in your head.
Yes.
It's in go ahead.
I was just going to say, and has been actually really more well-researched than standard modalities we think of as therapy. Anyway, I don't have to go into that, but it's really well-researched.
Yes. So understanding, again, the healing process is not left to your head alone. It's multidimensional, which is what we're addressing here. So we have talked a bit about this center, which is, and there's a reason why we chose this first to define, because from this center, everything else, this is the place you always come back to.
In the healing process.
Yes.
And in daily life.
Yes.
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 Yeah. And it's hard to find that place if you've had traumatizing experiences or relationships that have been distorted, right? Because a lot of the pain and suffering we have is because we feel like our center or our self or our soul is damaged. And so we try and hide it or protect it from ourselves. And that's why we come up with coping mechanisms instead of tuning into the authentic need and tuning into the authentic information from that core.
Love that. So good.
It's juicy in here.
Yes. Okay. So we've started to define this idea of your center or your high self, which as we introduce the other parts, I'm sure there will be some crossing over and returning to this, broadening the awareness of this, our understanding of this high self. So that leads us now to begin to start defining our next piece, which will be the energy body.
Yeah. That's a complicated one.
Yes, this is a complex one.
Yeah.
So we are going to move from the beginning awareness of the center. And in our next segment, we will be approaching this idea of the energy body. So we're going to get ready to take a break. And we look so forward to seeing you on the other side. Mm-hmm. Don't go away.
Follow Voice America at facebook.com/Voice America for juicy updates from your favorite radio shows and podcasts.
Are you tired of feeling stuck? Are you suffering from a chronic illness, addiction issues, lack of motivation, a negative mindset, and a lack of purpose? Do you dream of a life full of purpose and the ability to respond rather than react? And what if you could see yourself through the eyes of compassion while you're in the process of creating the life of your dreams? It will be a process. Dream Makers is designed to empower transformation from being stuck and unsatisfied to a life that is moving forward with purpose and joy. You will get clear on your dreams and the limiting subconscious beliefs that block you from seeing them through. You will learn and be supported in implementing tools that develop the mind-body connection and rewire your brain for success and mastery. Dream Makers is a 12-week online course with weekly live Zoom meetings, a book and workbook, access to accountability, and group support. Spots are limited. Experts say that if a person could do one thing to increase health and happiness, expressing gratitude would be it. Gratitude is an easy, attainable way to improve your outlook and begin rewiring your brain for resilience. You will learn the clinically proven benefits of a gratitude practice, why and how gratitude works to rewire your brain for resilience, and most importantly, a simple but powerful way to amplify your gratitude practice that will benefit your mind and body while improving your outlook.
It's your world. Motivate, change, succeed. VoiceAmericaEmpowerment.com.
You're listening to Empowered Transformation with Christa Dawson. If you have questions or want to contact Christa, go to ChristaDawson.com. Now, back to the show.
And we are back with part one of the nuts and bolts of your return to wholeness. And we just talked a bit about the center, your soul or your spirit, in this multidimensional being that you are, with a body and a mind and an energy body and an emotional body and a soul or a center. We just defined that, and we are going to be breaking down this idea of the energy body. And this, in our culture, is a hard one for us to get our heads around. And I love that Tabatha is here to come at it from multiple perspectives. So Tabatha, help us understand what the energy body is.
So the simplest way to think about it is that there are measurable energy fields that come off our body, and heart math is a great place to go look at the measurement of your heart and some other systems in your body, but it's literal measurements. So we've got a magnetic system, we've got an energetic or an electrical system, we have a chemical system, and we also have a system that uses thermolysis, right? Heat. And so we are an energetic being, period. It just so happens that we've encased it all in, as some people say, a meat suit or this human being that we have. Bottom line, when all of those systems work and put off the energy that they put off, it creates a biofield. And that is what we're talking about. And that biofield has been called an aura. It's been called a lot of things over time. But the thing I want to say in this chunk is that everything we're talking about right now is measurable. And so we're not making it up. It's a real thing. And because we're complicated, all of those systems work together to basically create the movement, the speed, the energy, our awareness. It's a way of transmuting energy from inside and outside of us into what we need that energy to be used for. I feel like that was a little vague, but we'll get into it more.
Good.
All right.
Keep getting into it.
Keep getting into it. All right. So when you think about the size, for example, of your biofield, it would be your size, height to toe. And then if you outstretch your arms and think about the bubble that would make around you, that is generally the size of your subtle field, right? Outside of your body. We also have subtle fields inside of our body. And these are the places where we talk about the acupuncture or acupressure meridians or the chakra system. And Christa, did you know that there is beautiful photographic evidence of the meridians used with radiographic dye? And when it's injected under the skin, when they're not near basically an acupoint, it just sits there in a blob, kind of like you would expect. But when it is injected into or around an acupoint, you can see a tail where the energy is pulling that dye through the system. And so your subtle body, your energetic body is all of you inside and out.
So, yeah, I love that. So an external and an internal. And, we've all been around people or in situations where we have felt the presence of somebody else, or we've felt, maybe somebody's really in a state of grief or anger, and we have felt it. And you have felt it. It's in their field. Another interesting thing that I've understood is that, for example, when you're in an angry state or a dysregulated state, your field contracts. When you're in a state of love and joy, your field is nice and big and expansive, and you can feel those people too. When somebody walks in that's full of love, they bring all kinds of light, and they bring that lightness, they bring that energy with them, and they are radiant.
Yeah.
That's part of what we're describing here. One of the things that we do in EFT, or in my practice with EFT, is we ask clients to identify when they're having a hard feeling, or they're addressing a memory, a difficult memory. And we'll ask them, where do you feel that in your body? And it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be experienced as a feeling of physical pain. We're asking them, where do you notice it? Does it feel like a pressure? Do you notice it, does it have a texture? Does it have a color? Helping people to begin to start identifying where they're experiencing. So remembering that your memories are not just in your head and in your brain. They're in your body too.
They're mostly in your body, actually.
Yes.
Like the ones that you can recall with images, brain. Feeling bad in a situation and you're not sure why, that is also called a memory, and it's an emotional flashback.
Yes. So helping people to begin to start identifying the energy body, and explain a little bit, and tell me if I'm going on a tangent here. But when we think about a certain topic and we notice just awareness in different parts of our bodies, just for example, like with the chakra system, when we're having sensation in different parts of the body, they can be indicators of the origins of, or what might be the underlying issues. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Can you explain a little bit more about that? Because the Chinese meridian system and the Hindu chakra system are incredibly powerful tools in helping people to unravel their energetic experience or energy body.
Yes. And people tend to think about the meridian system as more detailed and close, and that is and isn't true at the same time. When compared to the 7 chakra system, it is. But the chakra system also has nadis that run throughout our entire being. And those are very similar, if not meridians, right? I mean, we're surely looking at some overlap. I actually just forgot your question. Can you say it again?
Yeah.
I was given this great intro.
Yeah, no, it's just using some of the wisdom of some of these traditions to help, when you have discomfort in a particular, let's say I feel it in my throat or my chest, or I feel it in my stomach. Those can be really helpful tools where we can be extracting
They can
information from these traditions.
Yes, I thank you for reminding me. They can be very helpful about what the symptom might be or the cause. For example, if you have a lot of trouble in your stomach area with the chakra system, we're going to be looking at issues of self-valuing, self-competence. Do you feel competent? Can you get out there and do what you need to do? It's a doing energy, right? Whereas if you're looking, some of the places we stimulate on our chest for vagal relaxation, but also meridian stimulation, tune right into lung and kidney meridians, which are about grief and fear. And so it can give you some context about what might be going on, particularly with chakras. It can also give you an idea of when that might have happened to you, because each chakra is more vulnerable and available at different developmental ages, as we talked about in the last episode.
Ooh, that's interesting.
It's a powerful combination to know where and why or when.
Right. What are some of your favorite ways to help people to begin to work with their energy body and to identify their energy body, to grow that awareness for themselves?
That's a great question. And really, some of my favorite ways are to just sit with them in attunement. So like I attune and teach them or model them attunement, meaning if nobody tucked into us, if nobody really looked at us when we were little and learning how to be in relationship, then we don't know how to be in relationship with ourselves. So for example, a lot of people will say, I don't feel that in my body, or I feel it everywhere in my body. I allow them to go with what they think is happening, because sometimes it is everywhere in your body, right? And so again, we're coming back to that pause, Christa. It's really a pivotal piece where we need to take the space to allow ourselves to do something differently. And so sometimes one of my favorite tools is to allow people to express whatever they're feeling, however they're feeling it. So sometimes that means it's not words, right? I can't, especially with kids or people who have been traumatized in very early life. A lot of times they'll make hand motions for what it's like, and that is okay. Or they will go, it's just the static all in my head. Those are great places to start, because we need to start with what is actually happening now. Right? So for some of you, it will be a big deal, and for some, not so much.
That really leads beautifully into what we were talking about earlier with this idea, again, going back to the idea of the center or that high self awareness of yourself, or that compassionate companionship where you get to sit in with whatever discomfort is going on and just sit and be with it. And when you have cultivated that center self, that really allows you to powerfully witness whatever pain you're addressing. You feel the pain, but you're also observing it, or in the role of the observer, which in terms of healing, when that really uncomfortable stuff comes up, when you can learn to just sit with it, be aware of all the innuendo, all the little things that you're feeling without judging it, with compassion, and just be present with that feeling, whatever it is. And when those traumas are set in pre-verbal, they are all over the place, and there are no words. It's just a feeling, and frequently a feeling of despair.
Deep despair. And I just wanted to offer a word of encouragement with what we're talking about, because I agree with everything you just said. And also it hurts to learn how to do that sometimes. And so that window of tolerance we've talked about before, that's what we're expanding. And that's why it hurts, because along the way, we were not taught how to have emotions, identify emotions, and process emotions. We just learned whatever our parents taught us. And for me, that was, blow up and then shut down. There's no management happening there. That's just all reaction, And so to be able to sit through learning how not to have a blow up, it's not that comfortable. I just want to prepare you, but it is so worth it, because you will change your life from suffering continuously into occasional pain points.
And that, it's a much better place to operate from. And I can share on a more personal note, having gone through, the last handful of years have been really spectacular. I've had a lot of amazing growth, and, learning these tools have really been life-changing and put me in a place of having a clearer understanding of my soul's purpose. It's really offered a lot to my life, and my life has felt absolutely amazing. And then very recently, I got hit with a wave of triggers that put me back in touch with some very deep-seated pain. And so bringing these tools to the table, had this happened to me 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, I would have been in it and in it deep.
Right.
And I've been there before, friends, in terms of depression and anxiety. And I would have been in a bad way. With the tools, it was and has been a very different experience and a very liberating experience. I left a therapy session having sat in that session while my therapist attuned with me and sat with me. And I sat with that sad young person who needed to be seen and heard. And when I left that appointment, I was in tears, and these were tears of joy because that little person had finally been seen and felt and understood in the way that she hadn't been before.
And deserved.
So, yes, exactly. Exactly. So this is what we're talking about, folks. Having spent the last handful of years developing that center, developing awareness of the energy body, and we're now getting ready to lean into where do emotions come in and the connection between the energy body and the subtle or the emotional body and the energy body. Let's open that up a little bit, Tab. What's the connection between the energy body and emotions?
Complex, just like we've been talking about. I think maybe what we should do is just back up for a second and talk about where emotions come from, because I think that will help us understand how they integrate. So before we have these giant, is that okay with you, Christa?
Yes.
I'm just going to plow over you.
Perfect.
Okay. All right.
No, that's perfect.
Before we had this huge prefrontal cortex, which is unique to humans for the most part, right? Before we had that, we were much more animal-like in our behavior and approach, of course. And a lot of us forget that humans are animals. We are indeed, right? And so like animals, we have some residual instinct that is different from emotion, right? So for example, when you watch a school of fish or a flock of birds bend and curve with each other, they're deeply attuned and they're entrained with each other. And we have that in humans too. Do you know that we will just follow a group that's walking, even if it's not going where we think that we need to be going, we'll just follow it. So just remember, we're starting as a base animal. This part of our brain helps us understand what is going on and make decisions. So before we had that, we relied on instinct. And I'm just going to talk about 3 feelings from instinct because there are many and we could spend forever doing it. The first is happiness or joyfulness. And I would really say that that is more contentment. It's the feeling that you're okay. Keep going. This is fine. We don't have a problem with that feeling for the most part, and so that is our it's okay button. The second instinct I would like to talk about just for a minute is fear. And the purpose of fear as an instinct is to stop. And that's it. Stop and assess. But as humans, we stop and obsess on fear, right? And so that fear instinct is just to make us stop and pay attention to our environment to make sure that we are indeed still okay, right? But we just let that fear run away with us for lifetimes. And the third one, it's one of my favorite emotions. And I think it's because I am a toxicity cleaner, and that's the feeling of disgust. And by the time in relationships, by the time you're saying, I'm just disgusted with you, it's over. If you're in an intimate relationship, it's hard to repair that. But disgust was really, we created disgust to stay away from toxicity. We feel disgusted when we smell rotten meat. We feel disgusted when we smell a bog that we shouldn't be walking through. And so we've taken those instincts and translated them into emotions.
Beautiful place to pause here. We are going to be back in just a few minutes to elaborate on the use of and purpose of emotions. Juicy stuff. Don't go away.
A little birdie told me Voice America is on Twitter. Follow us at Voice America TRN.
Experts say that if a person could do one thing to increase health and happiness, expressing gratitude would be it. Gratitude is an easy, attainable way to improve your outlook and begin rewiring your brain for resilience. You will learn the clinically proven benefits of a gratitude practice, why and how gratitude works to rewire your brain for resilience, and most importantly, a simple but powerful way to amplify your gratitude practice that will benefit your mind and body while improving your outlook. Are you tired of feeling stuck? Are you suffering from a chronic illness, addiction issues, lack of motivation, a negative mindset, and a lack of purpose? Do you dream of a life full of purpose and the ability to respond rather than react? And what if you could see yourself through the eyes of compassion while you're in the process of creating the life of your dreams? It will be a process. Dreammakers is designed to empower transformation from being stuck and unsatisfied to a life that is moving forward with purpose and joy. You will get clear on your dreams and the limiting subconscious beliefs that block you from seeing them through. You will learn and be supported in implementing tools that develop the mind-body connection and rewire your brain for success and mastery. Dreammakers is a 12-week online course with weekly live Zoom meetings, a book and workbook, access to accountability, and group support. Spots are limited.
It's your world. Motivate, change, succeed. VoiceAmericaEmpowerment.com.
You're listening to Empowered Transformation with Christa Dawson. If you have questions or want to contact Christa, go to christadawson.com. Now, back to the show.
And I'm so glad you didn't go away, that you're still here with us. And this is the time in the show where I introduce the tip of the week. And ironically, the talk today is perfect. And my tip of the week this week is stillness. Explore stillness. We live in a culture that is fast-paced and highly distracted. Put your phone down. Matter of fact, stillness is not something you have to go be in a certain place. You can just sit for a minute and just tune in. As often as you think about it, the body follows the mind and the mind follows the body. When your mind is busy, get still. Observe. The mind will eventually follow. Stillness is an incredibly powerful tool. In Chinese tradition, the belief is that all creation comes from stillness. So powerful, powerful tool. Add that to your arsenal and explore, be curious, experiment and experience stillness. I think you'll find it a good addition. And sometimes if we're so busy running away from ourselves, we sit into stillness and things can get uncomfortable too. And if they're getting uncomfortable, it's time to get some help.
Yeah. You don't have to do it alone.
No, you don't. So stillness is your tip of the week. And I also wanted to just take a minute. In the break, you heard about a couple of offerings that I have that are available to you from my website, the one being the gratitude freebie. Gratitude is a life-changing tool. It's a powerful tool and will literally change your brain and your perspective. So it's a nice free little offering for you, along with a recording that will help you to amplify your gratitude practice. And you also heard bits and pieces about an offering that it's a workshop that I do called Dream Makers, and it is getting revamped and made better, which we're looking to launch later this summer. And so I really encourage you to get yourself on my mailing list. You can go to my website and sign up or subscribe. You can also follow me on social media platforms, Facebook specifically. I'm also on YouTube, to stay in the loop for upcoming exciting things that are happening and offerings. And so now we are going to return to the nuts and bolts of returning to wholeness part 1. And we're going to continue to break open this idea of emotions as a tool. So in the break, we were talking about, emotions are something we are really not taught how to make useful in our culture. Understanding that emotions are really energy in motion, and they serve as cues or tips. They're not necessarily, well, I'm just going to let you explain it, Tab. So elaborate, we talked a bit about happiness, contentment, which, to be really honest, I don't know how many people really experience contentment.
And that's too bad. That's too bad, because I think it's the deepest positive feeling that we can have, is that we're okay. And so you're right, Christa, we spend fleeting moments between happy points, right? So, which
I will say you can grow that. And it is a byproduct from doing all the things that we're talking about doing, cultivating stillness, cultivating awareness of that center, using tools that bring you into that mind-body connection, and you grow those periods of contentment in your life.
Absolutely.
It's a pretty good byproduct.
It is. And your whole idea of compassionate companionship is one of the fastest ways to get to contentment, because even when your life is going to heck in a handbasket, you can be content. And I know that sounds nuts, but you can.
Yes. And I can absolutely agree.
Yeah.
I can absolutely agree with that. So we also talked about disgust as a tool, which, fear, anger, all of those things, which didn't we talk about fear too? I mean, that
we did.
Like the alert, like, okay, something's not quite right here. We need to rethink this. These are healthy emotions. They're normal emotions. Are they meant to be attached to?
Are you asking?
Yeah, I'm asking.
No, unfortunately they're not. And most of us do. Did you want to talk a little bit about anger? We mentioned that in our break.
We did. And I think, again, understanding that emotions are tools. They are literally energy in motion, and can serve to help us make whatever changes we need to make in our environment or our perspective to take us back to those more contented spaces. So, yes, anger. Well, how does anger help us?
Well, here in the United States, I'm not sure it helps us too much anymore, because we've got a lot of anger going on.
Out of balance.
It's totally out of balance. So the intent of the instinct of anger is to let you know there's been a boundary violation. Get off my lawn, right? It's the get off my lawn emotion, because immediately when we have anger, even if you don't think it, it's a no, right? And that's good information to have. And frankly, when I see people who are depressed and they're coming to see me for depression and they start getting angry, I'm like, here we go. All right on. You're entering the healing stream, because anger can be misused in a lot of ways, but it's really a good indicator if you get angry about something that there's a boundary violation. And I just want to sneak in a complex idea here that sometimes it is other people violating your boundaries. Don't talk to me like that. You can't come here anymore. Those types of boundaries. More frequently, it is us violating our own boundaries. So would you like to hear an example of that? All right. So I had an epiphany one day right after I hung up with a lovely woman from a church I was attending at the time. It has nothing to do with her. She was beautiful. She wanted me to sign up for a potluck, and I said yes, and got off the phone and was PO'd. I don't want to go to a potluck, let alone make something for it. And I said yes. It's not fair for me to be mad at the church or the lady or the potluck when I'm the one saying yes to that. So I actually grew and called back and said, I can't do that. But if you are angry at somebody because they keep hurting you and you have the ability to leave and you don't leave, you're also angry at yourself. That's just an example, right? So that self-anger is actually where I would start.
Yes. So again, the intertwining with the subtle body.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? The intertwining between the subtle body or energy body and emotion.
So this is my opinion. There are probably other opinions. I just want to put that out there. You know, I would encourage your audience to research this because it will help them. An emotion at the most fundamental biological level is a squirt of chemicals from one of your glands. That's what or multiple squirts that create complex emotions like jealousy, right? And so when you think about it, just at that fundamental level, this experience you have of a thought or a sensation in your body triggers these eruptions from your glands that are meant to give you the chemicals you need to process whatever the situation is. So let's say you get that squirt of adrenaline that we were talking about earlier. You've got to be able to kill the lion or lift the car off the kid, whatever that huge, thrust of energy. You need that for the situation. But when we don't have that, it just dissipates and becomes pain. And so emotions connect to our subtle body because our energy fields inform our emotions when they should be triggered. That's that core belief stuff we've been talking about over time. And also our emotions arrange our subtle body. And so if you have a chronic adrenaline problem, your emotional body is going to shift to accommodate that. And the problem there, Christa, is that further moves you away from that center we've been talking about. Right. Even though it's a natural process, it still moves us away from that center.
Right. Well, it can lead to all kinds of, feelings of being stuck. We can get addicted to feeling a certain way.
Or just not even know there's another choice. I mean, I was treated for adrenal fatigue for the first time in my life when I was 15 years old.
Wow.
That's young.
Yeah.
And I have never known until later in life how to not do that, how to not be adrenalized.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they're very intertwined. And we've also we've set the stage for next week, where we're going to be addressing in more detail, if I remember right, thoughts. Mm-hmm. Because our thoughts are also, the emotion piece is connected to a lot of different things. It's intertwined with the energy body, but emotions are also very intertwined with our thoughts and beliefs. And so we're going to be breaking that down a bit more next week. Well, a lot more actually, because that can be complicated.
Yeah. And I think we're also wanting to talk about, as we were talking about earlier today, the chemical or like the literal physical reactions that happen into you too.
Right. Mm-hmm. Which is energy.
Yep.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I mean, that is.
All of us is energy.
Right. Exactly.
It just seems like we're solid.
Right. So the process of those chemicals is part of the energy experience, we'll say.
Correct.
So this has been super insightful. What would you say, just in terms of emotions for people, what are tools that you like to use with clients in maybe developing a different relationship with their emotions? So again, I feel like we're not really taught how to make our emotions useful. And so we allowed ourselves to be swept away by them or attached to them as if, or, like we attach to them and we just can't let them go.
It's going to be coming back to that pause in the stillness.
Right. I'm realizing that it's time to wrap it up.
It's so exciting.
Yes. Tab, where can we find you?
TabathaBird-Weaver.com.
And you are also on
YouTube, TikTok, Facebook.
Beautiful. And I am Christa Dawson at ChristaDawson.com. You can find me on Facebook under Christa Dawson Energy Psychology Practitioner. And you can also find me on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to have you all place your hand over your heart. Take a deep breath in. Feel gratitude for honoring yourself and being here today. Long exhale out. Good. I hope you all have a great day, and we will see you next week.
Thanks for listening to Empowered Transformation with Christa Dawson. We hope you have gained insight into the healing process and added tools to your tool belt. Until we talk again, have a beautiful week.